My name is Dick Townsend. Welcome to Reminiscences of a Plant Manager. Today, we will cover part 4 of the Hurricane Ike recovery, which I have titled The Weight of Responsibility. As a plant manager, you're responsible for the health and safety of everyone at your plant. Their families depend on you to keep them safe. This is an awesome responsibility. It is a weight you must carry. If you don't feel this weight, you're not doing your job right. When bringing a mass of new workers on your site for a recovery effort or turnaround, you must realize that regardless of the experience level of the people, you must treat them as short service workers because they are unfamiliar with the site and its culture and standards. One of the major jobs needed from day one is to clearly communicate your standards and expectations to everyone, to the last person in the last row. This includes treating everyone with dignity and respect. This needs to be done by the plant manager and the other members of the leadership team. You must expect that your standards and expectations will be challenged early on by some of the new workers to see if you will walk the walk or are you just talking the talk. We had an incident early on when one of the workers verbally harassed one of the bus drivers on the ride to the plant from the remote parking lot. I stood in front of over 1,000 contractors that morning and said, I subscribe to the notion that all human beings deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and I suspect I'm not the only one. By a show of hands, how many of you believe that all human beings should be treated with dignity and respect? The majority of hands in the room shot up as I expected. You see, the majority of people in our world are good and know right from wrong. I explained what had happened with the bus driver and that type of behavior would not be tolerated. So if you can't align with that, you need to leave. After that day, we had no more issues. As I said, you will be tested early on. Be ready for it. Hopefully, you will already have had alignment with your workforce, since most of the leadership will be in new roles to help manage the influx of new workers versus their normal duties. This is particularly true at the first line supervisor level. Fortunately for us, we had conducted a series of leadership safety training sessions for our managers and supervisors a few years prior to this event, so they were better prepared to step up to the challenge. If you'd like to explore training for your organizations, please feel free to contact me at jtownsendconsultingllc@gmail.com. Our site operating philosophy is shown on this challenge coin, which we have gave to everyone that came to work at the site. Our priorities were clearly stated: safety, quality, productivity, in that order. As far as safety, we must ensure that our work is safe before anything else. You must expect that this will be tested early on by some of the new workers, as I've said before, to see if you really mean it. Some will think it's just a slogan, that this really is not the way we operate. Quality. We wanted everyone to understand that we needed their best work. We needed them to practice their craft. We have a schedule that we'd like to meet, but we needed quality work to ensure that we had reliability at our site when we restarted. Productivity. We were spending lots of money, but not making any money, so there was pressure to return to service as quickly as possible. But we would not compromise safety or quality to get the job done. We reinforce this message at every interaction between people and at every level, every day, and it served us well. I encourage you all to steal shamelessly, take this philosophy and make it your own. I found it to be very effective. I met with every major contractor, site superintendent several times a week to keep reinforcing our safety values and to help them address issues as they arose. One of the issues which surfaced early on came from the fact that we had union and non-union workers working side by side at the site. The union workers exhibited some unacceptable behavior in the first few days of the work effort. I spoke with the contractor superintendents that were responsible for these workers and told them that this behavior was unacceptable and would not be tolerated and would result uh, in their removal from the site if it was not addressed immediately. I had developed a relationship with the superintendent involved, so he knew I was not bluffing, and he took swift action to correct the issues. We had harmony among the workers for the remainder of the time. I spent a tremendous amount of time walking the work site daily, observing work and assessing work progress. In fact, I wore out a pair of boots during this recovery effort. We included a phrase on the coin attributable to Alexander the Great. Upon the conduct of each depends the fate of all. This made the point that we have lots of potential hazards as a result of the storm and the way we had to shut the plant down, and we were depending on each individual to do their part to keep us all safe. Finally, we were very blunt. If you can't align with this philosophy, you can't work here. This slide shows a group of the leaders, both employees and embedded contractors, that had been through the training I referred to earlier. I can't say enough about the leadership they and their fellow leaders demonstrated. I will be forever grateful for their efforts. You also will need informal leaders as well to step up and help handle the new workers. Where do you find them? Well, the U.S. military is the greatest training organization in the world, in my opinion. So that's where I would look. I encourage you to look for the veterans among your site workforce, both employees and contractors. And we utilized our veterans as informal leaders. This slide just is a reminder that must provide temporary facilities for employees and contractors, and placement of these facilities must be managed at your site for siting purposes. You also have to provide on-site facilities for minor first aids. This just shows that we had a contractor provide that service for us. You will need to provide off-site parking and shuttle for personnel. This should include rigorous security screening at the parking lot before boarding the bus. You're going to be surprised at what you're going to find. I mean, we had issues that were nipped in the bud early and kept them out from coming to the plant. And I suspect in today's world, this is even more important. You need to have a shuttle bus that can go during the day because people will need to leave the site and people will be coming in, and you don't want to have cars coming in and out. You will need to provide a meeting area and lunch area for the contractors to use. I encourage you to make it as nice as possible because there will be there for an extended period. This is also where you can indoctrinate them into your site philosophy daily. We had space for over 1,000 contractors in these tents. And again, I want to emphasize, you will bring in hopefully experienced workers, but they need to be treated as a short service worker. And the definition of a short service worker is in an employee, including experienced workers, who is new to specific worksite facility or operational environment and has not yet become fully acclimated to its unique safety procedures, hazards, and work practices. These workers typically require additional supervision, mentoring, and training to ensure that they integrate safely and efficiently into the work site. Very important that you manage the new people coming on, even if they have lots of experience. Here's just a shot showing one of the tents. We had two side by side, so they're packed, jam packed early in the morning as we had our morning safety discussions. Remember the veterans? This is a picture that was taken taken on Veterans Day, as we had a special salute to veterans that day. So you can see, if you look for them, you will have a lot of experienced leaders, informal leaders that you can draw on, and I encourage you to do that. You're going to have new people coming in daily, and they will need that initial safety training one-on-one. They may have training from training organizations like ISTC, but they need the site-specific training when you come in, touching on that philosophy about how we want to operate. And just from the moment they walk in, that's got to be the first thing that they hear. I encourage you to do that. You will need dedicated safety personnel to assist with managing the safety in the field. They should also dress so that they can stand out and be recognized. One thing I've noticed is that during a major event, hurricanes, even holidays, Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving, after people have been off and they come back, they tend to forget about the safety systems that have been in place. I tell people to envision a board full of toggle switches representing all your safety systems. During major events or major holidays, these switches tend to go to the off position and have to be reset manually to the on position. This is the responsibility of leadership. You have to know this, recognize it, and be prepared for it as new people come to your site, and as even your experienced people, once they come back from a major event or a major holiday, be prepared to do some refresher to remind them about the policies and procedures that you have in place. And this is our work permitting system that we put back in place as soon as possible. Before we started bringing people in, is one of our key systems to communicate the work being done and the hazards, and to manage that. Reward and recognition is a very important part of what you do, and you do a lot of that. You're trying to reinforce this good behavior when you see it in the field. Make sure that you're recognizing it, and even put a reward program in for that. Can't do enough of it. This reinforces the behavior that you're looking for. A critical safety system that we have in place is a behavior-based field observation work process, where we get into the field and observe the work being done. And you have to collect the observation data and analyze it. This is just an example of a tool that we had in place. You may have something already. If you don't have something like this, I strongly encourage you to put it in place, because I have found that field safety observations, when done well, are one of the most proactive and effective tools that you can have to manage personnel safety at your site. Requires a commitment from leadership and time devoted to it, but it pays off handsomely and improves safety and sustaining safety at your site. Here's an example. I had a digital camera that I carried around with me, and I would take pictures, have thousands of pictures that I took. But I saw this in the morning, and it started off pretty good. I noticed we had a cart available to transport a piece of a valve, heavy valve in there, and things were looking pretty good at this point. And as the work went on, things looked less good. Here, we're starting to manually try to manhandle this equipment, lifting it up. I mean, we're just asking for back injuries, finger pinches, all of that. Overexertion is what we call this. This was unacceptable to us. The job got done, but we don't want to have this kind of work. So we put our heads together, and we said, this is going on in the field. We need to stop this. We made up a one-pager, I call them, and we took it into the morning meetings across the site, not just for the contractors, but for all the employees. Everyone at the site got to see the same message, that this type of work was not acceptable to us. We had lost a lot of all of our equipment, basically our cherry pickers, our draughts, all that sort of thing. So that's a leadership responsibility. We had to get equipment in to begin to help people. So we got in, started bringing in rental equipment for lifts, uh, machinery, handling, motors. We had to change out all of our motors. So bringing in equipment, getting it readily available for people to use to help eliminate the overexertion. Just another example. Much better way. You don't have to have the people using their backs and hands to do the work. Let the machinery handle the weight and let people focus on using their brain power to do the work. So you take the observations from the records from the people going into the field, and you want to track the results. You want to calculate a simple percent safe. Then you want to plot the percent safe on a graph with control points. I encourage you to publish it at least once per week with short comments. Give comments on what was looking good and recognize people for their efforts. But also, if there are things that were not safe, point those out and then explain clearly what should be done per the standard. Include a one-pager if needed. For example, if PPE is lacking, show a picture of an individual with the required PPE and restate expectations. And what you're doing here, you're helping to maintain safety focus in top of mind for people. And there's a whole set of training around how your mind works. You have short-term memory and long-term memory. And safety is one of those things that you want right up there in that short-term memory. And that's why you have to keep coming back to it. So when you make a one-pager, I encourage you to keep them, put them on file, because you'll need to bring them out again. Because the behavior, that undesired behavior will resurface. Unfortunately, that's the big challenge with safety. You're never where you need to be on that, and you'll have to deal with it in the future. So just put these on file and you'll bring them back out as needed in the future. And here's a copy of the graph. They put a little graphic in there with it. And I'll tell you, you can see this control chart. When it started to fall out of control, we would have near misses if we did not go out there and take action to reinforce the required behavior. So it works. One of the other things that's very important is communication. You're going to need to discuss this on a daily basis and try to use visuals, because that's the way people learn today. You don't need a lot of words. You'll lose them. They'll go to sleep on you. And we had a very primitive setup here, as you can see, but we used this and used it very effectively. You see some of our safety folks here, and the individual doing the talking here is one of those veterans that I talked to you about. He had come back from 2 tours in Afghanistan, just an outstanding individual, and had the respect of the people, and he was an excellent communicator. And can't say enough we had about our veterans. It's another example of some very quality communications using the pictures and the visuals. As we re-energized our substation and started to bring power back into the plant, we put this out way ahead of time, letting people know that it was coming. So therefore, being aware that things might be energized now where they weren't energized yesterday. Very, very important issue for us to deal with. Just another example showing another picture and how we communicated that out across the site. Just one more detailed around Lotto, and this is an outdoor switch rack. What do you need to do? So reinforce for people, bring it out. All right, what do I need to do? Assume that all the power, electrical power is on. Assume that from here on. Contact the operator for a work permit and Lotto. The Lotto location for the equipment will be posted. outside of the switchgear buildings, and remember to move your personal lock at the end of each day. Damage assessment. I'd like to end up here. This is a summary of the damage assessment. So the process, we had a walk down of by each engineering discipline. We identified the damaged equipment. The engineering made decisions to repair, replace, re-engineer, and we tested this versus our parts and equipment availability on whether we repaired or replaced. Work areas were prioritized as defined by our recovery philosophy, which I've covered already for you earlier. Our specialties operation, as we said, were our highest priority first, and we had completed that in all the disciplines. The high volume chemicals operations, we were set to complete in the following week, and procurement of required equipment was proceeding in all areas. Some of our major significant findings, our major machinery and furnaces, fortunately, had minimal impact because they were raised up off of the ground above the water level. Our control systems, unfortunately, were completely destroyed. Our electrical systems, 90% plus, was destroyed. 24, 26 substations were submerged. So major problems, major issues. Pumps and motors, essentially all were submerged, required repair or replacement. Analyzers, all 458 analyzers required replacement. All the shelters required significant rebuilds, mold removal, rehabilitation, cleanup, all that. Instrumentation, all the field instrumentation below the water level required replacement. We had a number of cold boxes for one of our high volume chemical operations, and 2 of the 3 had water intrusion, and we had to assess the impact. We ultimately went inside. We had to take the perlite out, go inside, inspect, and then reinstall the perlite. And then buildings, interior of all buildings, control centers, shops, substations were totally destroyed. Some we redid, but some buildings that we ended up just taking out. So the next steps were the damage assessment teams would transition into development of specifications and support of the procurement process. And we'd continue to survey the plant to ensure the remaining discovery items are identified as soon as practical. So the next video, we're going to dig into the details of the repair process. So stay tuned for more. Thank you.